But after the 4 weeks, from the week 4 to 8 after weaning, we divide again the pigs that receive the low protein diet into a standard plus 10 and plus 20% lysine above recommendations. And here we see some interesting things that compared with the control pigs that received standard protein during the entire 8 weeks, the lysine plus 20% group actually have similar growth performance as the control group.
Welcome to the Swine Nutrition Blackbelt Podcast, where we dig into the science behind swine nutrition. I'm your host, Jorge Estrada, and every week we bring you the latest insights through expert interviews and practical tips to expand your knowledge in swine nutrition. Today we have a very special guest in our room today. His name is Dr. Johannes Madsen. Dr. Madsen, good morning. Dr. Madsen is an associate professor at the Department of Veterinary and Animal Sciences at the University of Copenhagen. Dr. Madsen, thanks for joining us today to discuss compensatory growth during the wean period. And to start with, would you mind to share with our audience a little bit or quick review of your background?
Yes, as you already mentioned, I work as associate professor at University of Copenhagen. I got my PhD many years ago in Switzerland, working with piglet nutrition, and I have since then worked a little bit in the industry, mainly with amino acids, and after that at university with pig nutrition and physiology in general.
Excellent. No, thanks for doing that. And again, our topic today is compensatory growth on wean pigs. So to start with, could you explain the concept of compensatory growth in weaners and why is that important in swine nutrition?
Yes, so the scope of our study was that we wanted to see if we could slow the growth of the first 4 weeks after weaning with a restricted protein regime in order to avoid or to reduce the post-weaning diarrhea. And then after that, from 4 to 8 weeks after weaning, we want to speed up the growth again by increasing the lysine content. And let me also first mention that this project or study was done with great colleagues from Agroscope in Switzerland and was funded by the Piglets project. So what we have seen so far, and this is just the preliminary results that we have been analyzing, is that actually in the first 4 weeks after weaning, we have the two groups. One group is just fed standard protein, and the other group is fed a low protein. And in this period, the low protein group is actually compensating with an increased feed intake. So there is not much difference in the growth performance. But after the 4 weeks, from the week 4 to 8 after weaning, we divide again the pigs that receive the low protein diet into a standard plus 10 and plus 20% lysine above recommendations. And here we see some interesting things that compared with the control pigs that received standard protein during the entire 8 weeks, the lysine plus 20% group actually have similar growth performance as the control group. So even though they were not growing slower in the restricted period, they are in the recovery period growing as fast, even though they were restricted in protein. So that is a bit interesting. But we will look more into detail into the results. What we also will look into is that we sampled after the 8 weeks after weaning, we sampled a lot of muscles, and we will look into the protein synthesis and the whole myogenesis to see if that also is enhanced by the lysine. And furthermore, we also have the body composition of these pigs, so we can see if this recovery strategy with the increased lysine content affected the body composition. We do see after the 4 weeks after weaning, we do see that there's a tendency to more fat mass in the pigs that receive the low protein diet, which was expected.
No, that's interesting. And then if you think about that compensatory growth period, which I guess in this case you guys for what you're saying, basically, at the end of the 4 weeks, those pigs were already similar in weight. But what are some of those key factors that could influence that compensatory growth in weaning pigs, and how do they differ from regular growth patterns? If you could comment on that.
Yeah, normally what you see is that this is a bit special because if I recall correctly, normally you use the compensatory growth over the entire growing period from weaning, or even from maybe 30 kilos to slaughter weight. But we wanted to focus on just the weaning period because we want to see if this could ameliorate some of the negative effects of the low protein diet, which is again incorporated to reduce the post-weaning diarrhea. So we don't know yet what actually, one of our main questions is what is actually driving, what makes the compensatory growth possible? What kind of biological mechanisms? I've seen some speculations about the mitochondria and stuff like that. But that's why we also want to sample and make some more deep physiological analysis. We also want to use some transcriptomic analysis on the muscle samples. So there's a lot of interesting questions that we hopefully can answer. The thing is though that I had hoped that they were growing slower in the restricted period actually, and they had not compensated with the increased feed intake. But we will see what we find out. And of course, also you could speculate that, as always, if we had more piglets or more piglets, and even a group maybe with 30% lysine above recommendation, it could also be interesting.
Fortiva is moving beyond feed additives to create foundational ingredients that work with your pig's physiology to support resilience and health. With proven technologies like Ambatine, Flow Matrix, and Endura, Fortiva helps you address the toughest challenges in swine production. From gut health to growth performance, together we can make animals more resilient in the face of future challenges. Learn how at fortivaimpact.com.
Excellent. Going back a little bit on the nutritional component of your study, and maybe with your experience, what role does early nutrition play in promoting compensatory growth, especially in weaned pigs that might have experienced some initial growth setbacks?
I would say that it's the lysine, but not the lysine alone. You also need to accommodate the ideal protein profiles. You need to also elevate the remaining essential amino acids. But I would say it's lysine that could drive the compensatory growth, but probably in an interaction or combination with some of the growth-related hormones like IGF-1 and growth hormone and insulin. But I would focus on lysine and the other essential amino acids. But that's just my hypothesis. There are maybe other things as well. Because there have been studies where they have gone very low in protein, but tried to compensate with the ideal protein profile. But there's still a long way to go, I think. That doesn't cover it alone. So we made it a little bit different approach.
Well, I hear you. And then if we think from the producer standpoint, is there any ways to monitor or optimize that compensatory growth to ensure that translates into better productivity?
Yeah, that's of course the practical aspects. What we also discussed prior to initiating this project was that is there a certain period from weaning to 30 kilos where they are more prone to compensatory growth, and that's also why we will look into the activity of the satellite cells, which are driving the postnatal growth. But currently, I would not give any recommendations. But from a practical perspective, it would be great if you could. The first 4 weeks are the very fragile ones. If you think about the post-weaning diarrhea, so if you could restrict there, and then the from 4 weeks to 8 weeks after, the question is that's enough to compensate, because the previous studies have shown that it's very important the relation or the ratio between the restricted and the recovery period. how much success you have in the compensatory growth.
No, that makes sense, and of course, as you guys experience there, I mean, not all the time you're gonna get the same response, I guess, right? And it depends on several factors.
Yet.
Well, I think that's all the time that we have today, Dr. Madsen. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you very much for being here.
Everyone, thanks for listening to the Swine Nutrition Blackbelt Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us some comments. Join us in our next episode.